Emily is co-founder and CEO of PairUp, an AI-powered workplace connection platform. And AI comes up for us, and I'm sure for many of you all the time. So we're really excited to talk about this from Emily's perspective. So Emily's got quite the resume behind her before starting her own thing here. So she's worked at Walt Disney, and she worked on designing technology for the theme parks there. She's worked at Facebook/Meta. And she also started Brave Initiatives, an organization that helps women with building tech skills, coding skills. So she has a lot to bring to the space around learning and education that we talk about all the time. And so she's going to talk about, can tech make us more human? We're excited to kind of hear from her on this topic. And she's going to share some very practical skills about what that can mean for all of us. So Emily, I'll hand it over to you. We're going to close at about 15 before the end of the hour. And so we'll do a little bit of Q&A and do a little follow-up, probably around like 20 to the top of the hour, maybe a little bit sooner than that. So take it away, Emily.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's so nice to see you all. And the reason this theme even is a little bit controversial is I think I have questioned technology in many ways and AI in many ways. And so I think I'm hoping that this can be a bit of a discussion too. And if there are any questions or thoughts that you have on this topic, I would love to hear it as well. But I'm going to take you on a little bit of journey with some of the research that we've been doing, as well as a little bit around kind of some of the things that we've been hearing from those that we work with and the companies that we're serving, and provide a few practical tips that we've been learning and trying out with how we're building PairUp. But again, would love to hear your insights as well. So please jump in if there are questions as we roll through it, but I'll leave some time at the end for question and answers and a bit of a recap as well. So yeah, just to share the story, not to reiterate on my own journey, but I think there have been some pieces that have made this topic particularly interesting to me. I grew up in a military family where I was moving all around the world. We moved every 2 years or so, living all around the US and Europe. And so I got really interested in people and connection, and why do we feel like we belong, and what are ways that can really be increased, and what are also ways that make us feel more isolated and alone and less connected to the communities that we're a part of. So I ended up going and studying social psychology and anthropology for undergrad. I was not interested in tech at the time, never thought that I would go into technology. Just really thought I was, wanted to study people and how we connect and how we collaborate, and when does that work well and not. I did a lot of research actually out of the Harvard Business School research lab there, where we're looking at online collaboration and some ways that people can collaborate more effectively. That ended up leading me to go and work as a researcher at Disney, where I was there for about 4.5 years working on technology for the theme parks, as Erin said. And it was an amazing experience. I'm going to try and sprinkle a few Disney stories kind of throughout this talk, because I thought I just learned a ton from the way that they kind of intentionally connected and brought these really remarkable experiences to life for people. And even in the theme parks, I think one of the big takeaways was that a lot of people came back almost for the staff, for the way that they were made to feel in the theme parks, and the way that they kind of felt this magical experience from their entry in, from the security guard, and the way that they talked to them, to the way that they left at the end of the day. And so I've been very interested in kind of that component of things. But I started to really begin to look at this intersection of technology and social behavior, and realized that I was kind of had a crutch if I didn't know the technological side of things and just stayed on the behavioral side of things. And so I ended up going back and getting my PhD in a program at Northwestern that's called Technology and Social Behavior. So it's a computer science PhD, but it also has psychology and communication studies as part of it. And a lot of my research was looking at tools for remote staff and digital collaboration. This was all prior to COVID. We're like, someday people will work more collaboratively in hybrid ways. And then COVID hit, and a lot of the research started to really be implemented in some powerful ways. Yeah, went to Meta and did some work looking at small businesses using Facebook to promote their businesses, and got really interested in also where technology can help us pull into a community of support around us. And Brave Initiatives, I think the reason I wanted to emphasize this is because one of my other learnings was that we were trying to help more women get jobs in tech and help them kind of see themselves in these tech roles. I think one of the things that we quickly realized was that you could get a great job, but social support isn't always equal in companies, and sometimes is limited to the people that you know or the circles that you are a part of. So how could we better equitize and kind of create greater access to social support utilizing technology for people? And so that was also kind of what spurred some of the work that I'm doing now at PairUp. And then got to work with a larger corporation called EF, where we were doing this kind of at larger scale and looking at emerging technologies to support people and fostering connection around the world. And then all that has led to PairUp now, which has been a wonderful journey of really getting to pull in the research and the practice and these experiences to building out better ways for people to connect together. So I do just want to say, I mean, I think that to give a nod to some of the Disney examples I'll start with, I think one of the things that has been powerful to me has been seeing where technology can actually really help us learn things about each other and connect in ways that are hard to do in person. And I think one of the, to those familiar with the Magic Band, which was a technology that has been, some loved, some disliked, but it has been a really powerful way to kind of ease and create a more seamless experience for folks in the parks. But one of my favorite components of it was that it could actually help when a customer would come in, they could put in their preferences and their needs and, kind of a little bit more about who they were. And then Mickey could come up to you and know that it was your birthday or know that it was your first time in the parks, because the Magic Band was able to then help the staff know more about your needs and who you are. And all of that created these really powerful moments for connection. I know there was a moment where I watched a girl go through one of the lines, and then Cinderella came up and said her name and that knew that it was her birthday. And that experience alone was just this powerful moment where I could kind of see where technology could do some of the things that we are a little bit less able to always know or fill in, and when it could actually create these beautiful moments for connection that sometimes we can just miss in our rushed, busy lives. And so I'm while being kind of a believer in tech, I am also a bit of a skeptic. I'm sure some of those on the call are as well. And I think, I both personally feel, but also, a lot of the research that we've done has just looked at tech can bring a lot of loneliness. It can bring, we're already isolated. We already have kind of a lot of, some of these natural instincts of social comparison and, looking at others around us and wondering if our lives are as good. And I think a lot of tech can exacerbate that. And some of the systems that we build can make us feel almost, a victim to our email, to our, many multiple pings each day coming from every direction. And so I think that there's room for skepticism on many fronts, those that I shared and others. I think even with AI, there's a lot of fear of what does this do? How does this actually create us, break us farther apart and make us feel more isolated and alone? So lots to say there. But I think for us, one of the areas that we've looked really deeply at as a team has been around loneliness at work and where could technology actually come in and support us. And I think, some of these stats have been fascinating of, over half of employees feel really lonely and isolated at work. And, that has only been exacerbated by distributed work, but is also even when you're going into an office. And I think, we've done a lot of listening tours as a team and working with customers and trying to understand their needs. And I think a lot of, this can sound like I've just started and I don't know who I can turn to, or I feel like it's expected for me to figure this out on my own, or I couldn't tell you the name of anyone that's not on my immediate team, or, et cetera. We've got a Slack channel, but it's really overwhelming and I'm actually not really getting the personalized support that then I need. And so these are some of the kinds of questions that for us have really inspired us and made us want to better solve this problem with technology for connection. Also just kind of the cost of this for organizations. So around 8 hours a week on average spent by staff looking for answers to questions that you could find by talking to someone. And obviously then the implications of what that has for both, personally, but also on a higher level for organizations, which have been, interesting to just watch and think about how we could better explore. And so what I'm going to talk a little bit about is some of the ways where I think there's potential for better ways that we can utilize these online support systems for connection. Again, I'll talk a lot in the spaces for teams at work, but I think that this applies across the board. I know when we were doing a lot of research, we looked at systems like Fitbits and, like ways of sharing and noting your, how far you've come and your progress. We looked a lot at even systems like Wikipedia, where folks would, share a lot of all kinds of information online, and then ways that they could feel recognized and supported and connected, even in these digital communities. We looked, even when I was at Meta, we looked at reactions and ways where you could actually provide some of the things that are sometimes hard to get the feedback to give in person, where actually we can have, tools to help give and validate support in real time in ongoing ways. And I think, I've been also interested in more of the mental health. We've looked a lot at kind of where this can lie with sometimes people. I mean, it's been fascinating with ChatGPT, but people actually sometimes feel more comfortable asking AI a question than they do actually saying to people in real life that they have that question. Because sometimes we don't want to feel that, we don't know something, or that we are, the imposter syndrome can be high at all levels. And so it's been interesting where technology can actually come in and help to make asking for help much easier, and where things can be celebrated. So with all the light, I think there's dark and light kind of in all of this, but I'm really interested in looking at where the light can be found. I think so for us as a team, I think a lot of our work has been thinking about, when we were in the office, and for those in the office now, a lot of times there can be these moments where connection can be fostered. I think the water cooler is the most popular example, but it often is still limited by proximity, by if you're extroverted or introverted, if you're willing to go up to someone and say hello or talk to them. And also it's often limited to those who are just around you, or sit around you if you're in the office. At home, we're kind of in hybrid ways. A lot of the connection and knowledge sharing and just support can drop. Certainly this is again where we think that solutions can come in, and this is not a plug for PairUp. I am happy to talk if you ever want to talk more about what we're doing, but I think what we've been really believing is that there actually are ways that even in person we aren't getting the connection support that we need, and a lot of that can be challenging, even when we are in person. And so could we actually utilize systems for some of the social support and connection that we need in ways that are hard to do online, currently in more offline ways, but are also hard to do online. So this is going into a little bit more of the practical tips and applications. So I think, the question that I've been quite interested in is where can tech bring us, closer together? Where can it, do more good than some of the harm that it can, and make us feel more connected rather than more isolated? And so some of the three themes that I'm going to be talking a little bit about are some of the ways that we've been doing this, but can be done, in a variety of ways, which I can share more on. I think one has been around actually matching people more intentionally together. And I think certainly online dating has been kind of ahead of its time of where it has helped in some of the ways that are hard to do. I think that it should go far beyond online dating and be much more in actually how we can connect with humans and find our people and find the people in our neighborhoods and in our offices. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. Secondly, we're going to be talking a little bit about how technology can actually remind us and prompt us in ways that are hard to do sometimes in person. And there's a lot of cool research around the power of the right questions and where actually technology can help to do those and help to foster those. And then lastly, there's a lot that tech can do that is really hard for us as humans to do around actually tracking, measuring, supporting progress, and actually sharing that and celebrating and honoring that with others. And so that is also, those are some of the core areas where I think we can design a more connected and supported workforce. I will just say a lot of this is rooted in, as expected from my background, a lot of this is rooted in a lot of deep research. There's one of my favorite researchers who really was what kind of the inspiration behind my dissertation. And what I did is a researcher called Alfred Bandura. And a lot of his work is around how do you build self-efficacy, and a lot of the bones of the research, which was published in the 80s at this point, has been, modified and I think can be applied in the technological space as well. So to just start with a little bit around connecting with the right support, I think what we've been looking a lot at is, where can technology actually help to match us together with people who can help us in the right ways. And so I'll share a little bit of how we're doing this in our company, but again, this can be done in a variety of ways. I think part of it is ensuring that technology can help to identify what people are struggling with, what they're needing more support on. Again, because these systems are often, people feel a little bit more comfortable online, sometimes sharing that or writing that out. What can happen is actually, for our system, we are able to say, these are the things that I'm needing, and we can help to match you with those right people. But I think that there's a lot of power in actually having a vision and a sense of who's out there and what are the things that exist. A lot of that often sits in isolation with people. And so the more that can be, publicly shared and people can start to see who knows what, who has what skills, the better. And so some of the types of questions that can be asked to help to facilitate that support are, what is the kind of support that you're needing right now? There are a lot of systems out there that really can help you to identify, these are the things that I'm needing. There's also kind of what kind of help can you give or receive right now, or are you able to kind of connect in these ways? There's also kind of ways of matching around what do you like to do for fun, or ways of kind of connecting you with people with shared interests, and also elements around how frequently do you want to connect and what do you want that to look like. But what we've been doing a lot is actually how do we kind of better publicize the questions that you're having and then match and route people to the right help at the right time based on your needs. And to me, that's one of the areas where in person, a lot of that happens and is not shared, or may be shared just with a trusted colleague. But this is a way in which you can actually start to say, these are the things that I'm needing, and technology can come in and help to match the right support. One of the things we've talked a lot about is kind of this element of kind of creating serendipity more intentionally. And then a lot of times, a lot of connections are left to chance, and that you happen to meet the right person, or you happen to the right kind of even the right bike club, or you meet someone who says that they know that person, et cetera. And so I think one of the things that we've been looking at a lot, and would be happy to share more if you're interested, is around kind of better matching systems for connecting people together, and where technology can actually do that. And even AI now can help to support that in pretty remarkable ways. I'm going to talk a little bit around kind of prompting with the right questions now. And I think one of the things that we've been doing a lot as a team has been looking at how do we really think about intentional questions, and also doing some of the things that are hard to do in person, which is remembering who you've checked in with, and what kind of questions might help to actually foster deeper discussions. I think one of my favorite components has been we've done a little bit of looking at having technology remind us to check in around certain things. And one of the things that we looked at was having a reflection question that comes in, where instead of saying kind of how are you feeling right now, actually the question prompts you to check in together around what are you feeling right now. And that one little shift in the word gets very different responses from people to share with each other, and actually to share more about their needs, what they're actually feeling in that day. I know, especially with remote work, we're finding with a lot of the teams that we work with, there is very little known about how people are actually doing. And then that doesn't allow for greater connection as a result of it. And so a lot of that sits in isolation with you kind of working through the question alone at your desk. And so I think that has been a component that we've been looking at. So where technology, I think, can really foster this and support this is reminding you to check in and actually fostering and helping to connect those, but also helping to prompt with thoughtful and meaningful questions. And so within our platform, we've done a lot where we actually will kind of remind you to check in on different types of questions over time. You can have, log of an understanding of what you've talked about in the past, which sometimes we tend to be a bit forgetful because our lives are so busy. And so you go to this meeting, you have no recollection of what you shared in the past. So technology can actually help to remind you of that and help you to know and have a better understanding of what you've done in the past, and then help to kind of guide and scaffold those relationships moving forward. And so to me, that's another real power of where tech can help us get that connection and some of the support that's harder to do in person. The one Disney story that I just want to quickly interject with here is that one of the things that I thought was so powerful in the parks was that a lot of, you had lanyards, and there was a way of, well, one, I don't know if folks here in the room have been in parks recently, but you can share and pass back and forth different pins. So there's a whole pin system where you can share pins across. And one of the beautiful things that I saw what would happen is you'd see a couple of people in the parks, and some little girl like beelining over to a staff member who had the pin that she wanted. And then they would exchange these pins together, and actually it would lead to a whole dialogue. And also all the badges in the company had your name and where you were from and your hometown on there. And just like some of those little primings of actually knowing your hometown, of knowing your name, and also having something to exchange, led to all kinds of beautiful connections to happen within the parks in ways that otherwise you just keep going about your day and kind of keeping your head down. And so to me, there's a lot that we can do and are trying to do, but also I think can continue to do, where technology can help to make us aware of the connections, make us aware of what we have in common, and prompt us around those things in more meaningful ways than sometimes can be done in our busyness. And so I think in the third piece, I want to talk a little bit about this measuring and celebrating progress component, because I do think, if there's any learnings we've had from Strava and from all these, different systems, even I'm in the workout mode of thinking right now, but I was talking about Peloton with someone yesterday around just these senses of community that can come through really honoring, sharing progress, and tracking. Some of that can turn people off. I know that some of the, elements of constantly things being counted can be hard. I do think that there has been a challenge we've seen it kind of over and over with the companies that we're serving, of people are burned out and there's a lot that is on their plates, and they're not actually taking moments to honor that or to note that or to celebrate that. And also can feel, or at least a lot of the staff in these companies have said, just like the to-do list is unending. They're not actually seeing what's being done and honoring that. So I think we do look a lot at ways to better help to measure and track and understand and celebrate what you've done, and also highlight that in ways where people can celebrate with you and in that. And there's been a lot of the research actually from Bender, the research I mentioned a little bit ago, was around the way that you can build a sense of confidence and self-efficacy is actually through these small wins and sharing and noting progress along the way. And that combined with validation from others, and others really honoring and celebrating that, can make you feel more deeply connected to the community, but it can also raise your self-efficacy and self-esteem on your own. So I think that there are some powerful ways that are hard for us to do always in person. Again, because of the busyness, because of this project to project basis, there are a lot of even thoughtful ways that on Slack you can celebrate and honor that progress. I know we've done a lot of ways to kind of shout out and celebrate and honor that. Or at the end of the week, we do something now that's called High-Low Buffalo, where you reflect on a high from the week and a low from the week, and then something random from the week or something going on in your life outside of it all. And that has allowed for some moments to really just kind of quickly check in and honor that and feel more connected and on the same page. But I think some of the things that we've done and looked at is, actually checking in and understanding, are people connecting? Are things working? What's not working? If, those matches that I showed at the start aren't working, kind of reconnecting or finding others. There's certainly ways that technology can help to also check in and measure on progress and pre-post. But to me, one of the most interesting is just that honoring and celebrating and visualizing the progress, which I think tech can do more powerfully to help us feel more connected and also to feel better in sync and on the same page. I think some of the benefits of this, and there are a lot of things, kind of that are at the core of this, but when these things are utilized, we're finding that this leads to people feeling kind of they're part of better work environments, where they're honored for their progress, where they're feeling more connected, where they feel more human and actually kind of seen as their whole self and the whole person, that kind of individually, but also collectively at teams, that they're more kind of empowered. These are broad stroke, all these benefits. I'm happy to share more on the research behind each of them, because there's a lot of numbers there, but certainly, when you feel that you are supported, that you have people in your corner, there's a lot of research around the impacts that can have on your productivity, on your engagement, on how long you want to stay in the organization, et cetera. And then also on kind of the satisfaction that you have each day. And we often say that, work is so much of our lives. We spend a lot of time on our computers right now. We spend a lot of time, depending on your job, for the most of us, there's a lot kind of at stake in actually the way that we spend our days. And the more that technology can actually help to foster ease and a sense of connection and a sense of understanding and sense of celebration and honoring, the better. And so just to kind of recap those three, that kind of think tech can be best when it's helping to connect us with the right people at the right times based on our needs, when it's helping to kind of prompt meaningful questions and connections and reminding us to connect, which can be hard, and also reminding us what we've connected on the past. So helping to kind of better log that and also better prompt that. And then this kind of tracking, measuring, and celebrating of progress, which is sometimes really hard to do in our busyness. So I think that this is a very hokey looking slide, but I think I did want to close with, I do think, a lot of this is in our hands and in our control, especially, I don't know how many folks in here are building technical systems or are, or just leading teams or working in teams kind of at all levels. A lot of tech is affecting us deeply every day, even us on the Zoom now. It's, there's a lot that can be a cost of that. And I think the more that we can really be building technology rather than letting it control us. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to get into tech and thought that it was a really powerful combination to want to study people and to study systems. So really, we need more kind of humanists, I think, in building tech. And so that's been a big passion of mine. But I do think a lot of this is in our control, and we can use it in intentional ways and control it rather than it controlling us. And then just to give a very shameless plug, I am happy to talk more about PairUp later if you're interested, but we are really, the AI component has really come in to help to map and do a lot of we call it like orchestration challenges that are hard to do sometimes within organizations and for people. And we're really focused around helping to clear the noise for staff and get them the right help at the right time based on their needs. So happy to chat more about that if you're interested, but we do kind of work within the systems also where folks are to make it as seamless and streamlined as possible. And I know I have a ton of appendix slides, as I said to Aaron and Sarah and Casina, so I'm happy to share more. We're, because of Q&A and ending a little early, wanted to give a little time for questions. Also have a ton of Disney anecdotes if interested, but wanted to kind of keep things there. And then I'm happy to dive into more questions as well.
I'll just say thank you. That was awesome, Emily. And I really loved your first example about Disney around knowing people's birthday because of the data that you've collected on the front end, and how that is just such a great example of tech-led empathy. I love that so much. And I'm sure you have thousands of other Disney examples and others like that. So I really appreciated that. And I really appreciated your 3 big points. The one that really stood out to me is this intentional pairing idea. And so from an instructional design, curriculum design point of view, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about some specific, additional, maybe specific examples of like, how does that work? Like the matching through the tech, like what are some data-driven examples around some of those things? I'm curious.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of, there's one slide I will show you from the appendix where I just want to give you some of the kinds of examples of what actually, maybe I'll talk it through and then we can go in there. But we've got there are a lot of different types of questions. I'll stop sharing and then I can pull some up as we go. But a lot of the pairing has been rooted in the kinds of questions that people have kind of daily, and then thinking about who might be the best person to map and to support them in that journey. I think we've had, a lot of those questions have stemmed from skills-based questions of, I'm needing support on this type of task, to questions that are more rooted in, I'm needing just to connect to someone and feeling a little bit isolated and wanting to get the support there. So there are all kinds of questions that have come in. I think the way that we have done that intentionally is really to help kind of start to map out and understand those skill sets across the organization. And then this is where the AI for us has been so powerful, is really to help to start to say, these 2 people need to be talking. They're doing the exact same type of project, or they've been wrestling with the same types of questions. So that's kind of where the system for us has been helpful. And basically what it also can do is then give the context for the 2 folks. So it's like, if you and Sarah have been paired, it will give some context of an understanding of why you've been connected. What are the skill sets that you have that you could help with, and kind of what are the needs that Sarah has that she would need support on as well. So that's been kind of where the magic for us has been kind of combined. And I'll find that slide too. I don't have it here, but some of the types of questions have ranged from, needing support in this type of project. I'm learning this new skill. I'm needing a mentor right now. I'm needing, I'm going to New York. Who's in New York that I could talk to, who's available right now? So there's kind of all sorts of questions that could help to then facilitate pairs from there. But that's where the matching algorithm starts to work for us.
Love that. It reminds me of the phrase, everybody has something to learn, everyone has something to teach. And that sort of exchange, as well as the peer-to-peer learning, right? Like to your point around matchmaking in different kinds of ways where you're both working on the same thing or seeking the same skills out. So matchmaking in that way, that's great.
Exactly. And just on the content curriculum side, one of the things we found is actually we can like kind of, depending on the nature of the question and the relationship, you can provide some scaffolding of curriculum to help to guide that. And so that's been helpful, is actually to kind of, when folks are connected, to give a little bit of some of the types of questions or prompts or learnings out there that exist as well, to help to support and kind of scaffold that the conversation together.
Yeah, I love it.
That relates to my question. I saw on your website that you do micro learning and leadership training. So is that like within your app that you provide that content, or is it that training is coming from another person and you're helping connect the person who could train them?
Yeah, so that's coming from our platform. And certainly there's a lot of sharing that's happening, naturally, just from experiences and in kind of the sharing of knowledge across. But part of our goal is to really create these kind of bite-sized learnings or prompts to check in on together. And so, and again, the beauty with AI here, where like this is the like AI hopeful in me, is that it can actually tailor it really to your needs. So if you're interested in building your skills in, as a project manager, it's kind of scaffolding and creating content and curriculum that we've built out across the organization with experts to help to have you grow and learn in small bites, but also in reflection with someone. So we're finding that, especially in more mentee and mentor relationships, which isn't all of our relationships, but is some of them, it's often hard to even vocalize what help you need. Like sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. And so actually having promptings and some curriculum that actually helps to guide that and say, read this 1 minute article and think a little bit about how's that actually reflecting and something that one thing that you could try this week, or those kind of things that could help to foster and create a little bit of scaffolding for the conversation.
I have another question.
Yeah. Okay.
So Erin actually wrote a book called Learning in the Wild, and so it has habits in it of becoming a leader or a learning leader, or how you embrace learning every day in your life. And one of her habits is to start as a beginner, like be willing to be a beginner at things and be uncomfortable gaining new skills. And I stalked Emily over the last couple of days, and it just seems like you're an expert at this. Can you speak on that a little bit, of just embracing the beginner mindset and maybe how you developed that skill?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I feel kind of like throughout this journey, I've been an ongoing, the imposter syndrome has been high of, even with deciding to go and study for computer science for the PhD. I remember I had to go and take classes with undergrads in my late 20s. And it was one of those where it was like, okay, you have to be okay with this and embrace kind of the discomfort of being new. And in some ways, I think, even with coding, because I also teach coding to women in these prison programs. And one of the things that's been really interesting has been, I think building tech is such an interesting skill in constantly failing. Like you're constantly getting setbacks and errors when you code and problems with the code. And that's actually a really healthy mindset to be okay with, and to kind of not see that as a flaw in you, but just to see it as something's wrong in the system and you just got to figure out what the bug is. And so I think that growth mindset has been important for me, especially in taking on building a company has been a totally new journey of a lot of highs and lows. And I think for me, it's been a really awesome chance to flex and have to kind of learn and embrace the discomfort each day, and also surround yourselves and a lot of these principles I was just talking about, finding people you can connect with and learn from, and celebrating the small wins and honoring that progress, and having people who will ask you the real questions and check in with you on the hard things that you don't often want to check in on, but are really important for your growth and reflection and learning. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of the stuff that I build is because of the things that I struggle with, or the things that I think I need and humans need. But yeah, the growth mindset hasn't been forced. It is not an option. You have to kind of be okay with that, especially in trying new pathways throughout your journey.
Love that. Yeah, I love your reflection on teaching code to women, and specifically women who are incarcerated. That's so beautiful and amazing. And I just echo your sentiment around anytime you're teaching something that requires you to fail forward and experiment and prototype and try again and get back up. And, it's truly the design process, right? The creative process of learning as you go and being comfortable with the unknown and being excited about what you can actually make for the first time that's different. So yeah, I echo that. I appreciate that you said that.
Yeah. No, thanks for saying. Definitely, I mean, even as a team, as we're building, it's been the design thinking process kind of throughout this whole journey, but it's a lot of listening to needs, trying to build something to solve it failing or working, parts of it working, and then continuing to iterate and grow. And so I think that even as a team, since we started, has been this ongoing spin of all that, which is I think makes it more fun. If it were all certain and clear, it would be, much less interesting in my mind. It's all, it helps you kind of keep your hunger and fight for it all to make it work.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
I don't think anybody would be mad if we had another Disney story.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I've got a few more Disney stories. Well, yeah, I was thinking of a few things. I think one of my research areas was around queuing in the parks, which is a huge pain, waiting in line, and especially for kind of hours and hours. And I think this was another where technology, I think, was interesting, was we started to look at kind of, it's been going for some time. It wasn't just my team, but we were looking at games and ways to make waiting more interactive in the theme parks. And I think one of my favorite thoughts and kind of examples was that there was I don't know if anyone's mentioned Disneyland, but there's Soarin' Over California, which is a ride that kind of takes you over California. And in the waiting line area, there was a game that was put in that was a communal game that people would play together in line, where you basically kind of all interacted together in it. And what we started to see was that people actually had more fun. I mean, they loved going on the ride, but they were enjoying waiting in line, that you actually had to like get them to move to come inside, because they were just like engaging in these really fun ways together in line and collaboratively in line. And it was a moving line, so the game could actually work as they moved too. Or obviously the queue would move, so they could actually continue to play. And to me, that was also a fun way of, creating play in the waiting, in these like discomfort moments of where can you actually interject ways to connect with people. We also did ones where we had like questions where people would ask and popsicle sticks, and they'd talk to the people around them, which was kind of like interesting ways for people to start to build community in line and get to know each other and have something to do for these long hours, rather than, just kind of be frustrated. So I think that was an interesting one for us. I did a lot of work on looking at buffet lines, which was really interesting, and looking at like food waste in the parks, which was quite interesting. And there was, we were looking at waste. There was also a robotic trash can. I can see if I can pull up the video, but basically this trash can that would talk to you when you would put trash inside of it. And what was fascinating was it incentivized kids to actually throw trash away, because they got this really fun response when they did it. And so again, like fun ways where I think technology can incentivize behaviors and make you kind of make playful the experiences that we need, people need to clean up. I know also one fun fact was that the ice cream trucks that kind of drove around were actually trash dumps, because they would like pick up the trash, but it looked beautiful and like it was ice cream, but it was actually grabbing the trash. So I think there were a lot of little details and touches. I know I've looked a lot at kind of the design for delight component, like where can you actually design for these really beautiful small moments that were delightful. I know I did a lot of work in the hotel rooms, and I'm giving you a little, like, I know we don't have too much time, so sprinkling of some of the different things, but we did work looking at towel reuse in the rooms and ways to incentivize people to reuse their towels. And we'd go with staff and just the little touches and details that this, would really bring so much joy to the customers, of like moving a towel or turning on the TV so that the characters are watching TV when someone comes into their room. But we did some really interesting ways of like, when you'd hang up the towel, the hook would change colors, which made people remember where they had hung their towel, because there was greater difference in the hooks, but also made it more fun for people to hang up their towel, and then would be less water waste. So a lot of fun little kind of small touches and details that created both delightful experiences, but also, kind of rewarded some of the behaviors that were helpful for the parks, for cleaning, for, not being as wasteful, et cetera. So many, many more stories there, but that was kind of one of the themes that we really looked closely at. So yeah, happy to chat more if you're interested. I have a whole nother talk that's on like designing for delight that I've done, that's around just some of those little touches that change the way that you you feel. And I think Disney's one of their number of companies that do it really well, but I think they're some of the leaders of that in my mind.
So good. One quick question. Did the game that you're doing in the line affect the actual ride or the experience in some way? I'm curious.
It was tied to the ride. So like it had some of the similar characters and themes, but
Cool.
so it was more just like thematically tied. But yeah, we had some people who just played in line for hours, like not even waiting in line. They just wanted to play the game in line. So I think that was also pretty interesting, is like when you make those kind of annoying experiences more playful, people almost like want to be there, which is funny.
So good. Yeah, I just took my son to Universal a couple of months ago in California, and the line experience was cool, the way they designed it, but it wasn't gamified and it certainly wasn't building community in the line. So I love your example there.
Yeah. There are
Mhm.
a lot of fun little things that I think they tried out and are continuing to try, but
So good.
Well, we're at time, but thank you so much, Emily. I think like my main takeaway is technology can feel so doom and gloom, especially right now. I feel like everyone's like, technology is ruining the world, but you have made it really encouraging and exciting. And I loved your positive spin on it, and that you are using it to connect people instead of bring them apart, which is just truly inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing the work that you're doing. And it was just such a pleasure to meet you and get to hear more about what you do.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Thanks for having me. And yeah, let me know if you want to talk more. I'm happy to, I think that my LinkedIn or whatever is in there, but happy to meet to chat more too if it's helpful, or think about the context of your organization if helpful too. Yeah.
Thank you,
all so
Emily.
much.
Thanks for your time.